Hello and welcome to the Bookkeeping Basics webinar. I'm so excited that you're here today and that you are looking to get your bookkeeping in order for your small business. So maybe you've just started a side business, or maybe you already have a hobby that you want to treat like a business, or maybe you just want to know more about bookkeeping in general, or if you are just overwhelmed at the thought of getting your bookkeeping up to date and in order for taxes, then this is the webinar that's made for you. I am so excited that you're here today. So in way of introduction, all right, my name is Lydia Miller and I'm the owner of DAC Balance. That stands for Debits and Credits Balance, and I am an independent bookkeeper in Pensacola, Florida. And so that means I have lots of different clients that I help. I have clients in government and nonprofits, mom and pop shops, and more. And I love helping them get organized and stay organized and up to date on their bookkeeping. And so the name of my company is DAC Balance, and you can find me at lydiagmiller.com or on Instagram at DAC_balance_LLC or at Lydia G. Miller. You can find me there, and I pretty much update daily on different bookkeeping tips or business tips. I'm also getting an MBA right now, so I'm adding in more information on how to run your small business more effectively. All right, so you haven't done anything for your bookkeeping yet. I want you to know that you are not alone. I meet business owners who are just starting to get their bookkeeping in order, or they're looking to get their bookkeeping more organized. And some of these people have even been in business for years and years and years, and they just seem to have never gotten around to getting their bookkeeping finished. And they still don't have a good system for what they should be doing. So what I want to encourage you with is that you can learn how to do this. And ultimately, if you own a business, you are responsible for keeping your bookkeeping up to date and having accurate information. The IRS will hold you accountable for that. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want to show you how you can keep your bookkeeping up to date so that it's not a stress for you all the time. So the first thing we're going to talk about is treating your business like a business. I'm sure you've heard that term a lot, but here are a couple things that you can do to treat your business like a business and not just as a hobby. So the first thing is opening a business checking account. Now, I prefer to use a regional bank or a credit union just because they tend to work with business owners a little bit better than the big corporate accounts who can't really do much for you. So that's who I use for my business checking account. You'll also only want to deposit money that the business earns and only spend money for the business out of this account. This is really important to do and to keep track of. And you'll also want to keep a small emergency fund in your business account. Now, there's different opinions on how much you should put in there and how much you should keep, but the way I look at it is let's say for my business, I depend really heavily on my computer. That's basically where I do all my work from. So if my computer were to crash, I mean, I couldn't do business. I would have to figure out something else to do until I got my computer back. So I would say if you depend heavily on something, then I would keep at least that much money in your savings account just to cover that type of an emergency for your business. So that might look different for every business, but you'll know how much you should keep in there after you start looking at your expenses. So the next thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to decide on a bookkeeping system. Now, I've seen several different ways. I've seen things kept just on paper, which is definitely not preferred anymore. You can't really do reports with this. You can do some basic, income minus your total expenses, but you're still never quite sure if everything is accurate that way because there's not a lot of good double checks for that. And your accountant will probably want an electronic copy anyway so that they can verify that the information is correct. I don't prefer this method to use. You can also use Excel. What I've seen people do is they download a template for bookkeeping that you can find, and they'll just enter in all the transactions. This could work if you don't have a lot of transactions, Or if you're trying to pull all of your business transactions out of your personal account for the end of the year, this can work for that, but it's still not the best method to use. In my opinion, the best method is definitely QuickBooks Online. It's what I prefer to use and what I'll be assuming that you're using for the rest of this webinar. If you're not going to use that, don't worry. There'll still be helpful information for you, but just keep that in mind as you're listening through this webinar. So, what to do with your receipts and your paper? I'm sure you're wondering about that, especially if you've kept receipts in paper, for your business. So the big deal with receipts is this: you can't deduct expenses unless you have proof of what that expense was. That's an actual IRS rule for why you have to keep all of your receipts, and that's why receipts and documentation of what you're purchasing is so important. Just because it says that there's a $40 charge from Target, the IRS wouldn't know if that's personal or if it's for your business. So you want to keep those receipts. Now, keep all your receipts that have business expenses on them for sure. And what I would say to do is to find one spot to collect them in and just to use that method, whatever works for you. I've seen people just stick a bag in their car and they just put them in there. I've seen people keep something in their office where they put all the receipts there, or in a file. Just whatever works, that's what you should be doing. Another thing that you can do is to keep your receipts. You can scan them into your computer and store them there. That's a pretty popular method. And so you would keep them on Dropbox or on your hard drive or somewhere like that. You can also create a separate email for your receipts. This is something I like to do, especially if you use, like me, if you use Amazon a lot. This is a really easy way to do that, is because you create a separate email. So the email example would be receipts@dacbalancedllc.com. That's not the one that I use, but it's an example for you to see. And so even if you are in a store, sometimes they'll give you the option to send your receipts to an email, and that's where I would send them. Or you can, if you get the receipts on your personal email or on different emails, you can just forward them all to one email address. So everything is there, so you're not searching multiple inboxes at the end of the month. So after you have all your receipts in paper, how to store the receipts in paper is also something to think about as you set up your bookkeeping system. So my favorite method to do is to create a binder with 12 tabs, and the tabs will say, 1, then 2, then 3, 4, all the way down to 12 for the 12 months of the year. And behind behind the one, I'll keep all of my January paperwork. So that would be my bank statement, important papers from the month, if I sent out any letters to somebody that I want to keep up with, or if something happens annually, I'll keep it behind there as well, just to have a system going. And then I can write notes on I can write notes to myself and leave it there if I need to. I do like to keep my bank statements printed because I can write notes on the bank statement and have them all in one place in the binder, and that's really helpful. You can also use a filing cabinet. That's more of a traditional route to it, but it's kind of unrealistic if you don't have that much to store, and it might take up a lot of room if you don't need it. And the last method that I've seen is that you can keep them all on your computer. So you can just keep them scanned into your computer. I do this as well. I keep bank statements scanned on the computer and receipts scanned onto the computer, but I also have the paper copies just because it's easier for me to flip through and make notes if I need to. So here, this next section, we're going to talk about some basic bookkeeping tips, and it's going to be broken down into what you need to do daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, and sorry about that. I think I had a technical difficulty. All right, so we're talking about your basic bookkeeping tips for daily and weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. And I am going to actually send you a gift of a PDF of all this information along with a few other helpful tips that we're going to talk about. So I am going to have all this information in a PDF sent to you. So if you're not taking notes, don't worry, I'll have it sent soon after you purchase this. All right, so the things that you need to be doing daily, you need to be checking your cash balance. You need to make sure that the transactions that are there are actual legitimate business transactions that you made and that your account isn't near an overdraft. You want to just check your cash balance. Also, you want to make deposits, and honestly, this can be done every other day. If you need to, you don't have to necessarily go to the bank every day, but you want to get the money in the bank as soon as possible for sure. All right, and so weekly, you want to pay your bills if you still write checks, or if you send payments on your bank account, you want to make sure that all your bills are paid. You want to send invoices to your clients. If you send invoices, I mean, if you make, if you just sell products, then it might be a little bit different. You wouldn't have to send invoices, and the last thing you need to do is to gather up your receipts from the week. If you're not keeping them in a certain spot, if they're in your purse, if they're in your car, wherever, just gather them all up. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is what you're going to be doing monthly for your business. And there we go. So what to do monthly for your business. You want to reconcile your bank statements every month, and I'm going to talk through how to do that if you're not sure. You can also reconcile your PayPal account and your credit card accounts. And you also want to run a profit and loss statement, and this is really easy to do in QuickBooks Online. You literally go to reports and then you click profit and loss, and then you choose the month that you're running the profit and loss for. It's really simple. You also need to analyze your budget every month, and you want to see, do you need more income? Do you need to cut down on expenses? That type of thing to meet your goals for your business. And then you need to check for outstanding receivables. You want to make sure first that the invoice actually did send to your client before you go asking them, where's my money? And you also need to see if you need to follow up on a client, if they're pretty far out, if they haven't paid in a while, you might want to decide if you're going to continue to do work with them until they've paid. And so you'll also want to pay sales tax and payroll tax. So you can find a bookkeeper or an accountant who can help you set up these things if you want to pay it yourself, or you can decide to outsource it to another company who will take on the liability, especially for payroll tax. There's a lot of good companies who will deal with all of the payroll and kind of the HR side of your business, and because they keep up with the laws and with things that are changing, and they can help you out tremendously. So what you need to do quarterly are you need to pay your estimated taxes, and you'll want to check with your CPA to see if you actually need to pay estimated taxes, and then you need to pay your payroll taxes. You want to check with your CPA on this, and like I said, I prefer to outsource payroll to a payroll company because of the changing laws, but you can also run payroll in-house by using QuickBooks Online. And the last thing that you'll want to do is just to evaluate your goals. So this goes back to running a profit and loss comparison to your budget every month under the report section on QuickBooks Online, so that you can really see how your business is doing, and if you are trying to reach certain goals, you can see if you are reaching those goals in your business. All right. Next, we want to talk about things that we're going to do annually and a one-time thing. So annually, you'll want to send out 1099s in January if you're not going to have your bookkeeper or your accountant do this. So if you pay a company that is not a corporation more than $600 during the year, you have to send them a 1099. So the easiest way to prepare for this throughout the year is to always request a W-9 from every new vendor that you use during the year. So the W-9 will tell you the tax ID and the type of business that the company is. You're not sending 1099s to corporations, but you are sending them to the other types of businesses. If you do decide to send 1099s out, you can print these forms from QuickBooks Online, and then you can mail the copies to the IRS and to the company or individual. But if you want to outsource this would be something if you have a bookkeeper that they would do, or if you use a CPA firm, they could do this as well. So the next thing you do annually is you have your tax return completed, and I recommend using a CPA or an enrolled agent doing this. They can help you find deductions that you might not be aware of, and that could be really helpful for your business. And also, you need to create a budget yearly just to know where you're going, what kind of revenue you're expecting, what type of expenses that you're expecting, just to kind of see where you're at. You can always tweak this throughout the year, but to have kind of a roadmap is really key for doing well. And the one-time things that you'll be doing is setting up your chart of accounts, setting up a bookkeeping system, and opening your business banking accounts. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk through is how to reconcile a bank statement in QuickBooks Online. So this is going to get kind of detailed. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention. If you, not just paying attention, but if you have your QuickBooks Online open, maybe in another screen, hopefully you can follow along with what I'm telling you to do to keep your records up to date. So this is where you start if you have done no bookkeeping, and if you don't know where to start, this is the first thing that you'll really want to do is to reconcile your bank statements. So if you have a business checking account set up, then you're in good shape. You already have your transactions in one account and you are off to a good start. But if you don't have a business checking account set up, then what you'll need to do is look through your personal bank statement and pick out which transactions are for business. So whether that's deposits or expenses, you'll want to see how you did this year. And if you have your receipts for those expenses, then you can deduct those. And if you don't have receipts, you can't deduct them, unfortunately. So don't be discouraged if you haven't been keeping up with it. You can start now, and you can probably find a lot of receipts that are online. If you ordered a lot of things, then you can probably look at those accounts and download a receipt for it. And if they are big purchases, you might actually be able to go back to the store and see if they can reprint receipts. I've had clients do that before, even small receipts. They just go back and have it reprinted and sent to them, no problem. So if you don't have an actual separate business checking account, I wouldn't necessarily enter those into QuickBooks Online because those are just never going to reconcile, and they're always just going to be hanging over your head reminding you that you didn't do things the best way the first time. So in that case, I would just enter the transactions into an Excel list and put beside, and so in one column I would have the amount, and then second column I would have where you spent the money, and then in the third column I would have why you spent it, and then in the fourth column I would have the chart of accounts. You can download templates for this if you don't want to try to create something on your own. You can download a template online that can help you get organized. But moving forward, we definitely want to have QuickBooks Online on our side and also a business checking account. So once you have your business checking account set up, and especially if you've used it throughout the year, then I would just gather up all my bank statements and print them out. That's the first step. So, and if you've used PayPal or credit cards, I would gather those statements as well. And then after that, you'll want to look under accounting in QuickBooks Online and click on Reconcile, And then you want to choose the bank account that you are reconciling. So if you're starting from scratch, then you'll want to set the bank account on the chart of accounts first, which is really simple. Don't worry about that at all. And then you'll enter in your ending date and your ending balance. And also you want to double check beginning balance to make sure it matches what was on your bank statement. And if it's not what it was supposed, okay, so if the beginning balance is different than what it should be, you can run a report under the accounting report section called exceptions to closing date. And that'll show you what transactions were changed after you reconciled the books. And so you can see what went wrong and how you can change it so that it's correct. So once your ending date and your ending balance has been entered, make sure that all the transactions are in QuickBooks Online. So now you can manually enter these, which takes forever, or what you can do is you can set up a bank feed to where your bank automatically, once the transaction happened, QuickBooks Online will automatically pull all those transactions from QuickBooks Online, and you can even set up rules in QuickBooks Online where if it says, from Microsoft subscription, it'll automatically put it under subscriptions in QuickBooks Online. And so what you'll do is go to banking, and then you'll look at all the transactions and click add on the ones that you need to add to your books. And then after that, you can go to your Reconcile screen and you can click off the transactions that happened on the bank statement. That is a huge time saver. I can't tell you how much time that has saved me for all my clients who have just pages and pages of transactions. That is a fantastic time saver for anybody. So then you want to check off, so after the transactions are in, whichever way you do it, you want to check off the transactions that are on your bank statement, and when the difference is 0, then you can click Reconcile or Submit. So it'll be in the upper right hand corner, and if the difference is not 0, then do not click Reconcile. That is going to create a lot of problems for you if you do that. So if you're wondering why there's a difference there, if you think you've clicked off everything, an easy way to find the problem is to look at the bank statement for the total deposits and expenses and compare those to what is on the screen so that you can find the difference. So a few common questions that I get are, can I reconcile this month and then work backwards? And the answer is no. You have to start from the earliest date and move forward, and that is pretty standard across any accounting system that you may use. And what if you have a QuickBooks Online account that has years and years and years of bad data, and you just want to get this year done because you've already submitted your taxes for previous years and you don't want to mess with it again? So what I would recommend is actually just starting over. If you have so much you would have to work through to just get to this year, I would open up a new QuickBooks Online account and start with January, enter those transactions or have the bank feed, put them in, and then move forward from there. You can enter in your beginning balances and then you can just be done with it. And if you want to resubmit your taxes from previous years that the data is kind of messed up in, then that's when I would worry about going back 2 or 3 years to clean up the data. Otherwise, just go ahead and start fresh for what you have. It'll be a lot easier that way in the long run. All right, so after you reconcile, after your books have been reconciled for the entire year, this is what you'll want to do. You want to look at the transactions that were not recorded in the month and see if they are duplicates and if they can be deleted. You'll want to run a profit and loss for that month and a budget comparison as well to see if you stayed in your budget or if you're a little bit out of budget and what tweaks you need to make for the next month. You want to look at your expenses and see if they're higher than what you thought they would be, and can you cut out any room for more profit. So for your books to be complete, everything has to be reconciled and there can be no extra transactions in QuickBooks. And every reconciled transaction needs to be categorized correctly. So how do you categorize transactions correctly? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to talk about that next. So the chart of accounts is the absolute foundation to your accounting system. So I want you to think of your budget at your house if you've ever done a family budget before. So for my family, I have a line item for my husband's income, for my income, for a mortgage, electricity, food, etc. And when our money goes in and out of our bank account, then I categorized it based on why the money was deposited or spent. So that's basically what you're doing when you're using your chart of accounts. Every dollar that goes in and out of your business is assigned to a category. And the good thing about the chart of accounts is that you can customize it to meet your business's needs. You can change what an income you can't change what income and expense is. You can't change those types of things, but you can put in expense line items for specific expenses that maybe only your business has. So if you use paint, you can have a line item for paint, for wood, for fabric, for paper, whatever your business does, you can customize it to your needs. And you can decide how this is set up. Now, the key to your chart of accounts and using it is being consistent. You want to make sure that your categories pretty much stay the same, and you want to make sure that the way you categorize something every month is how you categorize it. Don't change halfway through the year. If you do change, you want to go back and change where you're putting things, but it's best not to do that. So the accounts you set up here are the accounts that are on all of your reports. And so one way that I like to customize a chart of accounts is to create sub-accounts. So for example, under advertising, I wouldn't have one big lump under advertising because I would have no idea how that was broken down into. I would have advertising as the main account, and then you can create sub-accounts as well. And so under advertising, I would put Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, magazine advertising, etc., whichever way that you advertise for your business. And so that way, when I'm analyzing and deciding if I have too many expenses and if I need to cut things out, I can know exactly how much I'm spending on each category. Now, this is going to be pure gold when you need to make quick and informed decisions for your business, for sure. So having your chart of accounts set up properly is what makes doing your taxes easier. If all the transactions are categorized properly, then your accountant will know exactly how much you can deduct from your business. So what do I do now? All right, so you've made it to the end. So here is a recap of what you've learned and what you can do now to make your bookkeeping easier and useful for you as you run your small business. So you want to open a separate bank account for business purposes only. You want to decide on what bookkeeping system that you will use. You want to print off the PDF that I'm going to send you for your checklist and other helpful things, and make sure that you reconcile your books every single month. You want to set up your functional chart of accounts and create a filing system as well. All right, so that has been a ton of information. And if you're still feeling very overwhelmed, you have some more options. You don't have to feel that way. So you can find a good CPA, enrolled agent, or bookkeeper who can help guide you through this process if you still want to save some money and tackle this project yourself. Or you can hire a bookkeeper to handle all of this for you. What you would do is hand over your bank statements or any other information that they'll need. Excuse me. And if you're looking for someone, I can help you find someone who would be happy to help you get caught up. I know bookkeepers all across the country, and they would love to help you understand what's going on and what to do for your business. I also offer this as a service and would love to get to know you and your business better. And if you have any other questions, maybe have another question about your chart of accounts or just about bookkeeping in general, feel free to send me an email. You can reply to the email for your receipt or for this webinar, and I will do my best to get back with you as soon as possible. And I just want to thank you so much for listening. I really hope you've learned something that can help you in your business. And if you have any feedbacks or questions for me, like I said, send me an email, and I hope you have a wonderful day.